Introduction: Why you feel busy but still stuck. Let's start with a hard truth that most people avoid admitting. Most people are not lazy at all. In fact, they work hard, sometimes too hard. They push themselves, stay busy, and try to keep up. The real problem isn't laziness. The real problem is overwhelm. It's the constant feeling of having too much to do and not enough time to do it. Every morning begins the same way. You wake up with good intentions, a long mental to-do list, and a quiet promise to yourself that today will finally be different. Today you'll focus. Today you'll catch up. Today you'll move forward. But as the hours pass, distractions pile up, small tasks steal your attention, and by the end of the day you're drained. You feel tired, frustrated, and disappointed. Because once again, the most important work is still untouched. Not because you didn't work. Not because you wasted the day, but because your energy was spent on the wrong things. You answered messages, reacted urgency, handled easy tasks, and stayed busy. Yet the task that truly mattered, the one that could have moved your life forward, was postponed again. And the next day, the cycle repeats. This video is about breaking that cycle for good. In the next minutes, you're going to learn a complete and practical system to stop procrastinating, regain real control over your time, and start finishing what actually matters. Not through motivation hacks that fade after a few hours, not through hustle culture that burns you out, and not by turning your life into a stressful productivity competition. This is about working with your mind, not against it. You'll discover how to identify the one task that truly changes everything, the task that creates momentum instead of resistance. You'll learn how to structure your days in a way that makes progress feel natural and automatic, rather than forced and exhausting. And you'll understand how to build simple habits that make focus, clarity, and execution part of who you are, not something you have to fight for every day. If you apply even a small part of what you're about to hear, you won't just get more done. Your productivity will rise, your confidence will grow, and the constant pressure you feel will begin to fade. You'll start ending your days with a sense of completion instead of guilt. And before we dive in, take a second to subscribe, because this video won't just help you be more productive. It will change how you think about work, time, and yourself. Part 1. The real problem with time management. Here's something most people never fully realize, even after years of trying to manage their time better. There will never be enough time to do everything. This isn't a personal failure, and it's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's simply the reality of modern life. No matter how organized you become, no matter how efficient or disciplined you try to be, new responsibilities will always appear. New emails arrive, new expectations are added, and new distractions quietly compete for your attention every single day. Many people live with the illusion that one day they will finally be caught up, that once they finish a few urgent tasks, clear their inbox, or complete a big project, they'll finally have space to focus on what really matters. But that moment never comes. Waiting to feel ready or free is a trap, because the workload never stops growing. There's always more to do, and time will always feel limited if you try to do everything. This is why traditional time management often fails. The real solution isn't learning how to do more tasks in less time, and it's not about pushing yourself harder or filling every hour with activity. Doing more only leads to more pressure, more stress, and more exhaustion. The true solution is not about speed. It's about choice. Real progress comes from choosing better, not doing more. High performers understand this at a deep level. They aren't faster humans. They don't have special abilities, and they don't have more hours in the day than anyone else. What sets them apart is how they decide what deserves their attention. They deliberately focus on a small number of actions that create the greatest results, and they consciously ignore or postpone everything else. They protect their energy, their focus, and their time by refusing to treat every task as equally important. And once you truly understand this idea, once you accept that your success depends on what you choose to work on, not how busy you are, you're ready to move to the most important idea in this entire system. Part 2. The one task that changes everything. Every single day, you are faced with many tasks competing for your attention. Some are small, some are urgent, some feel easy, and others feel intimidating. But despite the long list and the constant noise, There's always one task that matters more than all the others combined. One task that, if completed, makes real progress possible and changes the direction of your day, and sometimes even your life. This task is rarely the easiest one. In fact, it's almost always the opposite. It's the task you avoid without fully realizing it. The task you postpone, delay, or push to later. The one that feels heavy the moment you think about it. The one that creates mental resistance, tension, or discomfort before you even begin. Your mind finds excuses, distraction, and alternatives because deep down, it knows that this task requires focus, effort, and responsibility. That task, your most important task, is the one with the greatest positive impact on your life right now. It's the task that moves things forward instead of sideways. It's the task that creates growth instead of maintenance. And it's the task that, once completed, changes how the rest of your day feels. When you complete this task, something powerful happens. The mental weight you've been carrying begins to disappear. Your mind becomes clearer. Your energy increases. Other tasks suddenly feel easier, lighter, and less overwhelming. You stop reacting and start leading your day instead. Confidence replaces pressure, and progress replaces guilt. But when you avoid this task, the opposite happens. Even if you stay busy all day, everything feels heavier. Small tasks feel exhausting. Distractions multiply. Stress builds quietly in the background. And no matter how much you do, there's a persistent feeling that something important is still unfinished. Because it is. This is why the rule is simple, but not easy. Start your day with that task. Finish it completely. And do not negotiate with yourself. Not later, not after checking emails, not after scrolling, and not after warming up with easier tasks. The moment you delay it, you give resistance time to grow. The moment you hesitate, your mind finds a way out. Many people believe that motivation creates action, that they need to feel ready before they begin. But this is one of the biggest productivity myths. Momentum doesn't create action. Action creates momentum. The act of starting, especially when it's uncomfortable, is what generates energy, focus, and motivation. Once you train yourself to begin with the most important task, even when you don't feel like it, you change the way you relate to work and effort. You stop being controlled by moods and resistance, and you start building a habit of execution. And that habit, more than anything else, is what separates people who move forward from those who stay stuck. Part 3. Why starting is hard and how to fix it. Procrastination isn't about laziness, and it never was. Most people who procrastinate actually care deeply about doing well. They want to succeed, they want to improve, and they want to move forward. The real reason they struggle to start is uncertainty. It's a lack of clarity that creates resistance long before any real work begins. When a task is unclear, your brain doesn't know where to start, so it delays. When the goal is vague, the task feels endless, shapeless, and overwhelming. And when something feels infinite, your mind interprets it as a threat. That sense of this will never end quietly triggers fear, avoidance, and distraction. Instead of focusing, your brain looks for relief, checking messages, switching tasks, or doing anything that feels easier in the moment. This is why starting is often harder than doing the work itself. The first step feels heavy because the path forward isn't visible yet. But the moment clarity appears, that weight begins to lift. The solution is not motivation. The solution is clarity. The moment you write a task down, clearly, specifically, and visibly, you reduce mental resistance. You take something abstract and turn it into something concrete. Confusion becomes structure. Anxiety turns into direction. Instead of thinking, I need to work on this big project, you see the first clear step you need to take, and suddenly the task feels manageable. This is why effective people think on paper. They don't trust their memory to hold goals, plans, and responsibilities all at once. They don't carry unfinished tasks in their head, where they create stress and mental noise. Instead, they write everything down, not because they're forgetful, but because they understand how the mind works. Writing things down gives your brain permission to relax. It no longer has to keep reminding you of what's unfinished. It no longer feels the pressure of remembering everything. With clarity on paper, your mind is free to focus on execution instead of worry. Clarity is not just organization, it's power. When you know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, starting becomes easier, progress becomes smoother, and procrastination loses its grip. Part 4: Planning. The hidden productivity multiplier. Here's a rule that sounds almost too simple to be true, yet it quietly separates highly effective people from everyone else. Every minute spent planning saves multiple minutes in execution. This isn't theory, and it isn't motivational talk. It's a practical reality you can observe the moment you start applying it consistently. When you plan your day in advance, ideally the night before, you're not just organizing tasks, you are preparing your mind. You give your brain a clear roadmap for the next day, a sequence of actions instead of a cloud of decisions. Instead of waking up and immediately asking yourself what to do, what to start with, or what feels urgent, you already know the decisions are made. All that's left is execution. This is far more powerful than it sounds. Decision making consumes energy. Every time you pause to decide what to do next, you create friction. You hesitate. You doubt. You second guess yourself. Planning removes that friction entirely. It allows you to move from one task to the next with clarity and confidence, without constantly stopping to rethink your direction. When your plan is clear, hesitation disappears. You no longer waste mental energy debating whether you're working on the right thing. You don't drift into distractions as easily because your next step is already defined. Focus becomes deeper and more stable, not because you're forcing it, but because your mind knows exactly where it's going. This is why planning is not rigid and it's not restrictive. In reality, planning is freeing. It liberates your mind from chaos and uncertainty. Instead of holding dozens of unfinished tasks in your head, everything is safely placed on paper. Your brain no longer needs to scan constantly for forgotten responsibilities or unfinished obligations. It stops worrying. It stops reminding you. And it finally shifts into work mode. When everything is written down, your mind relaxes. Stress levels drop. You feel more in control even before you begin working. That sense of control is what fuels motivation and consistency. You're no longer reacting to the day, you're leading it. Planning doesn't slow you down. It accelerates everything. It turns scattered effort into focused action, busy days into productive ones, and constant pressure into calm progress. Over time, this habit compounds. You get more done in less time, with less stress, and with far greater satisfaction at the end of each day. Part 5: The 80-20 reality of work. Not all tasks are equal, even though they often appear that way on your to-do list. Some actions quietly move your life forward, while others consume time without creating meaningful progress. A small percentage of what you do is responsible for the majority of your results, your achievements, and your long-term growth. This is not a coincidence. It's a pattern that exists in work, business, learning, and life itself. The problem is that most people do not naturally gravitate toward these high-impact tasks. Instead, they procrastinate on the most valuable work and stay busy with low-impact activities because they're easier, faster, and more comfortable. Answering messages, organizing files, checking notifications, or handling small requests feels productive because it creates movement. But movement is not the same as progress. Being busy feels good in the short term. It gives you the illusion that you're being productive. It protects you from discomfort. But at the end of the day, busyness without results leads to frustration. Only results count. Only completed, meaningful work creates real momentum, confidence, and long-term success. High performers understand this reality deeply. Their discipline is not about working longer hours or pushing harder. Their discipline is about choice. They make a conscious decision to refuse low-value tasks while high-value tasks remain undone. They do not reward themselves with easy work before completing important work. They protect their focus as if it were a limited resource. Because it is, this requires constant awareness. High performers repeatedly ask themselves a powerful question throughout the day. Is this the best use of my time right now? Not the most comfortable use, not the easiest, not the most urgent, but the most valuable. The question forces clarity. It brings attention back to what truly matters instead of what merely feels productive. And when the answer is no, they stop. They pause. They redirect. They don't negotiate with distractions or justify avoidance. They return to the task that creates the greatest impact, even when it feels uncomfortable or demanding. This habit, choosing value over comfort, is what separates people who move forward from those who remain stuck. Over time, it reshapes how you work, how you think, and how you measure success. You stop counting hours and start counting outcomes. You stop confusing activity with achievement, and you begin building days that actually matter. Part 6. Long-term thinking changes everything. Important tasks always have consequences, even when those consequences are not immediately visible. Some actions may seem small or insignificant in the moment, yet over time they quietly shape your future in powerful ways. Other actions, despite taking up hours of your day and draining your energy, ultimately change nothing at all. The difference between the two is not effort, but impact. When you begin to think long-term, your short-term decisions naturally improve. You start to see beyond the immediate moment and recognize patterns. You realize that what you repeatedly choose to do today is slowly constructing the life you'll be living tomorrow. This perspective changes everything, because it forces you to evaluate tasks not by how urgent or comfortable they feel, but by what they actually produce over time. People who succeed consistently understand this deeply. They are willing to delay comfort today in order to build freedom tomorrow. They accept temporary discomfort because they know it leads somewhere meaningful. They choose actions that create growth, even when those actions feel difficult, boring, or mentally demanding. They understand that real progress often feels uncomfortable at first, because growth requires change, and change challenges the familiar. Short-term pleasure is tempting because it provides immediate relief. It reduces tension, distracts you from pressure, and makes the present moment feel easier. But when short-term pleasure becomes a habit, often leads to long-term regret. You look back and realize that time was spent, energy was consumed, but nothing solid was built. Comfort without direction keeps you stuck. Short-term discipline, on the other hand, builds long-term power. Discipline creates momentum, confidence, and self-respect. Every time you choose the action that serves your future instead of your comfort, you strengthen your ability to lead yourself. Over time, these choices compound. They don't just change your results, they change how you see yourself. This is why priorities should always be decided by consequences. Before committing your time and energy, ask yourself what this action will lead to if repeated consistently. Will it expand your skills? Will it strengthen your position? Will it reduce future stress? Or create new opportunities? Or will it simply pass the time while leaving your future unchanged? When you allow consequences to guide your priorities, your work becomes more intentional, your decisions become clearer, and your progress becomes inevitable. You stop reacting to the present and start building toward the future, one deliberate choice at a time. Part 7. Creative procrastination. Choosing what not to do. Here is a truth that most people never hear, and even fewer are willing to accept. You cannot do everything. No matter how motivated, intelligent, or disciplined you are, time and energy are limited. This means that procrastination is not something you can eliminate completely. You will always procrastinate on something. The real question is not whether you procrastinate, but what you choose to procrastinate on. This is where the difference between successful and unsuccessful people becomes clear. Unsuccessful people procrastinate on what matters most. They delay important decisions, meaningful work, and long-term projects, while staying busy with small, comfortable tasks that feel safe and familiar. Successful people do the opposite. They deliberately delay low-value activities so they can protect their time, focus, and energy for what truly matters. High performers practice what could be called creative procrastination. They consciously choose not to do certain things right now, and sometimes not at all. They say no often, not because they are selfish or uncooperative, but because they understand the cost of saying yes to everything. Every commitment consumes time, attention, and mental space. Without boundaries, even good opportunities become distractions. Saying no is not rude. It is strategic. It is a decision to respect your priorities and protect your most valuable resources. High performers eliminate tasks that no longer serve a purpose, delegate tasks that do not require their direct involvement, and postpone activities that can wait without serious consequences. They understand that doing less can often lead to accomplishing more. Every yes to something small is a no to something important. Every hour spent on low impact activity is an hour taken away from work that could create growth, progress, or freedom. When you become intentional about what you do not do, your time opens up, your focus sharpens, your stress decreases, and your results improve. Creative procrastination is not about avoidance or laziness. It is about clarity and control. It is the discipline of choosing where your effort belongs and having the courage to ignore everything else. Part 8. A simple system for daily priorities. There is a simple method that, once understood and applied consistently, has the power to completely transform how you work and how you move through your day. It is not complicated. It does not require special tools, and it does not depend on motivation. What makes it powerful is clarity. This method begins with one essential action: labeling your tasks by importance instead of treating them all as equal. Most people look at their to-do list as a flat surface, where every task seems to demand attention. This is where confusion begins. In reality, tasks are not equal, and pretending there creates constant stress and poor decisions. Some tasks must be done because failing to do them has serious consequences. These are the tasks that directly affect your results, your responsibilities, and your future. Other tasks should be done, but the consequences of delay are smaller. Some tasks are optional. They feel productive but don't truly matter. Some tasks can and should be delegated because they do not require your unique skills or judgment. And finally, some tasks should be eliminated entirely because they add no real value and exist only out of habit or obligation. Once you clearly separate your tasks in this way, something important happens. Your priorities stop being emotional and start becoming obvious. You no longer choose what to work on based on comfort, urgency, or mood. You choose based on impact. Confusion disappears, and with it, much of the resistance that causes procrastination in the first place. But identifying priorities is only the first step. The hardest and most important part comes next. You must start immediately on the most important task, without delay and without negotiation. This is where most people fail. They understand what matters, but they postpone it. They tell themselves they will start after checking messages, after completing something small, or after warming up. In reality, this delay gives distraction time to take control. High performers do not wait to feel ready. They begin. They stay with the task until it's finished, without switching, multitasking, or allowing interruptions to fragment their focus. They understand that focus is fragile, and once broken, it is difficult to rebuild. By protecting long, uninterrupted periods of attention, they create depth, speed, and quality in their work. This single habit, starting immediately on the most important task and staying with it until completion, is one of the clearest dividing lines between top performers and everyone else. It builds momentum, confidence, and self-respect. Over time, it reshapes how you see work and how you see yourself. You stop being reactive. You stop being overwhelmed. And you begin operating with intention, control, and quiet power. Part 9. Focus on results, not activity. In the real world, you are not rewarded for how busy you look or how much effort you put in. You are rewarded for results. Effort may feel noble and activity may feel productive, but neither guarantees progress. What truly matters, whether in work, career, or personal growth, is what you actually produce. Results are the only measure that consistently leads to recognition, advancement, and long-term success. Every role, every career, and every path in life can be broken down into a small number of key outcomes that matter more than everything else. These are the outcomes that create value, solve problems, and move things forward. When you focus your time and energy on these few critical results, everything else naturally becomes secondary. Lesser tasks lose their power to distract you, and your work gains direction and meaning. The challenge is that many people confuse activity with effectiveness. They fill their days with motion, meetings, messages, small tasks, and constant responsiveness, yet struggle to point to tangible progress. Activity creates the illusion of productivity, but results create real momentum. The shift from activity to outcomes is one of the most important mental transitions you can make. Another difficult truth is that your weakest critical skill limits your success more than all your strengths combined. You may be talented, motivated, and intelligent, but a single weak skill in a key area can quietly hold you back. This weakness creates resistance. It makes certain tasks feel heavier, more uncomfortable, and easier to avoid. Over time, avoidance turns into procrastination, and procrastination turns into stalled progress. Most people instinctively avoid their weaknesses. They rationalize them, work around them, or distract themselves with tasks they already do well. But real growth begins when you face weaknesses directly, when you identify them honestly, commit to improving them, and work toward mastery. Resistance begins to disappear. Tasks that once felt intimidating become manageable. Confidence grows naturally, not from positive thinking, but from competence. Progress accelerates when resistance disappears. When you no longer fear certain tasks or skills, you stop delaying them. You move faster, think clearer, and execute with greater ease. Your energy shifts from avoidance to creation. Over time, this focus on results, combined with the courage to strengthen your weakest links, create a powerful upward cycle. You stop working just to stay busy and start working to build something real, meaningful, and lasting. Part 10, the Rule of Three. No matter what you do in life, whether you're building a career, running a business, learning a new skill, or managing daily responsibilities, there are always three activities that produce most of your value. They may not be obvious at first, and they are rarely the easiest tasks on your list, but they are the actions that create the greatest impact. Everything else you do either supports these three activities or distracts you from them. When you take the time to identify these three core activities, something powerful happens. Your work gains structure. Your effort gains direction. Instead of spreading your energy across dozens of tasks, you begin concentrating it where it truly matters. This focus doesn't require you to work longer hours or sacrifice your personal life. In fact, the opposite is true. When your attention is aligned with your highest value activities, your output multiplies naturally because your energy is no longer diluted. Most people feel overwhelmed not because they're doing too much, but because they're focusing on too many things that don't truly matter. Their attention is constantly pulled in different directions, creating mental noise and fatigue. The Rule of Three cuts through that noise. It simplifies decision-making. When you know what your three most important activities are, choosing what to work on becomes easier. You stop reacting to distractions and start acting with intention. More focus does not mean more stress. Stress often comes from confusion, fragmentation, and the feeling of being pulled apart by competing demands. True focus does the opposite. It creates calm. It brings clarity. When you limit your attention to what truly matters, your mind becomes quieter, your work becomes deeper, and your progress becomes more visible. By returning again and again to your three highest value activities, you build consistency. Consistency builds mastery, and mastery builds confidence. Over time, this approach reshapes how you experience work. You no longer feel busy and scattered. You feel purposeful and in control. Less noise, clearer priorities, and meaningful progress become your new normal, and that is where real effectiveness begins. Conclusion. Putting it all together. Success has never truly been about working harder, pushing longer hours, or exhausting yourself in the name of productivity. Most people who struggle are already working hard. What holds them back is not a lack of effort, but a lack of clarity. Real success begins the moment you decide what truly matters, and then make the conscious choice to do that first, before everything else competes for your attention. Every single day places a quiet choice in front of you. You may not always notice it, but it's there in every decision you make. Distraction or progress. Comfort or growth. Reaction or control. These choices don't announce themselves loudly, yet they shape your life over time. What you choose to focus on today becomes the foundation of where you stand tomorrow. When you build a habit of starting with what matters most, something fundamental shifts. You stop feeling pulled in every direction. You stop ending your days with a sense that you were busy but didn't move forward. Instead, you begin to experience momentum. Confidence grows naturally, not from motivation, but from completion. Results improve because your effort is finally aligned with impact. And your sense of direction becomes clearer because your actions are no longer random or reactive. This way of working does more than increase productivity. It restores control. It replaces pressure with purpose and transforms scattered effort into meaningful progress. Over time, you don't just manage your tasks better, you manage yourself better. You begin to trust your ability to focus, decide, and follow through even when things feel difficult. And if you want more content like this, clear, practical ideas that don't rely on hype, but actually work in real life, subscribe to the channel. Because mastering your time is not really about schedules, lists, or tools. In the end, mastering your time is about mastering your life.